As one of Zeus' bastard children, you are doomed to be targeted by Hera. However, you found a way to get on the queen's good side before she found out who your father is. My father is the king of the gods and my mother was a mortal woman who died right after she gave birth to me. I was raised by my aunt. She is the one that told me about my mother's one-night stand with Zeus and how he never saw him again after that night. She warned me ever since I could remember to stay hidden because the wrath and jealousy of Hera knows no limits. Sadly, my aunt died 5 years ago from an unknown illness. No, I know why she told me to try to avoid the attention of the queen of the gods, however I couldn't help but understand her point of view. I mean, I'm not saying that it's okay to go around and murder/punish your husband bastard children, but if my husband would cheat on me, I would kind of hate the product of the affair as well. With this in mind, I started making offers to Hera. My logic was that if she eventually discovers my true identity, perhaps the offerings would make her give me a lighter punishment or at least she wouldn't kill me. So basically, it was like a bribe. At first there were small things, a bouquet of flowers, a basket of fruit, an animal when I managed to catch one. Anyway, I made sure to bring her at least an item every day. As I've gotten older and I began to use my powers, which are flying and a bit of wind control, I managed to get more bigger and more valuable offerings for the goddess. Gold, silver that I got paid for some errands, some golden apples which I won from a duel, pelts of bigger animals, monster trophies and such. Of course I try to barely use my powers under the direct sky in order to remain out of the goddess's sight. I don't know if she watches me but whenever I got the next day to her temple to live an offering the previous one that I brought the other day is gone so I take it she has received all of them. Even so, I'm lucky to have inherited my mother's brown eyes. Maybe if I had blue eyes like Zeus, she would have made the connection and I would no longer be. Thankfully she hasn't. A month ago I was invited to Olympus by no other than Hera herself, and to make matters worse, I was to join her at dinner with the other Olympians. When I first met her I was shaking like crazy, great eatings yo ur heiny ass. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored. She chuckled. I slowly raised my head. She was beautiful that the word itself was not enough to describe how she looked. Her smile made me feel as if I was in the safest place ever. Her eyes expressed kindness and warmth. Why would anyone ever cheat on her? I thought to myself. She was nothing like my aunt described her, or perhaps she was like this because she didn't know who I really was. You are one of my most devoted followers, my dear. For the past 5 years, you have brought me all kinds of offerings every single day. Before I knew it, I started looking forward to whatever you would bring each day. It made me entertained, which I've not been in a long time. Therefore, I would like for this meal to be your reward. I bowed again and thanked her. First she gave me a tour of all Olympus. I would explain it to you but I can't really cause I don't have the words to. The closest thing that I can say is to imagine the most amazing place in the world but 100 times better. At the end of the tour was a room with big white gates. This was where we were going to dine with the other gods. I started to get nervous. I never met my father before. I don't even know if he is aware of my existence. What if he recognizes me? What if he tells Hera who I am? What then? Are you nervous? She asked me. I nodded. Don't be. I made it very clear to everyone that you are my guest and you are to be treated with care and respect. You will be done no harm. She smiled and I smiled back only to think about what will she do with that last statement if she discovers who I am. Perhaps I really should have listened to my aunt. The doors opened and I saw the other 11 Olympians, my father, my uncle, my 2 aunts, my half-siblings, and Aphrodite who I think would be my great-aunt according to the divine family tree, but that's a can of worms that I don't intend to open. They all looked at me as if they said, so, you are the mortal that managed to get in Hera's good graces, huh? Well, let's see if you're all that. All but one. I looked at my father, straight in his eyes. He looked at me, directly in my eyes. He knew. I knew he knew. He knew that I knew. I prayed in my mind to him to pretend he didn't know who I was. I think he must have heard it because in the deathly silence there was, he opened with a welcome and asked me to have a seat. The meal itself was delicious. Satyrs and nymphs came to serve our food. I ate a modest amount to show gratitude but to not look greedy. I also chewed extra slow in order to avoid having to make conversation with the other gods. But I couldn't completely avoid making conversation and so I had to respond to questions like, what offerings did you bring to Hera? Or, how did you get that? And, where did you learn that? I already prepared answers for this beforehand, but tone question that I hadn't prepared for was, why did you choose to make offerings to my mother? Which came from Ares, the god of war. I was a bit taken aback but fortunately I am a quick thinker so hit him with the most humble and noble response I could think of, well, my mother died moments after she gave birth to me and I don't know who my father is. I was raised by my aunt until she died 5 years ago of an unknown illness. And so I found myself alone and with no family left. Her Highness is the goddess of family and so, I started making her offerings in hopes that one day I will manage to have a family again. That's how it started, but no I devote myself to Her Highness out of loyalty. That is my reason. They were all silent. Some had surprised looks and some looks that expressed pity. A was one of them. The mood became weird and so I tried to change it with a story of how I managed to caught a 5-meter bear that I later offered to Hera. Artemis took a bit of an interest and then the mood took up to a good vibe again. The meal ended, I thanked all of them, went out with Hera, bowed to her, thanked her and went home. It was stressful but I managed to survive. I thought that was it, but oh I was wrong because a week later I wake up with my father, Zeus at my door, wanting to talk.